Welcome to Element. I'm so excited that you're here, and I want you to know that Element exists to give you a place to be known, valued, and loved. And we're going to talk about what it means to be loved tonight. Love is a word that's been thrown around so much, we don't really even know what it means anymore, you know? Like, is love just one step above like? Is it just a really good Instagram post? Is it a filter on a snap? Is it the way you feel about your favorite food? Is it a romantic TikTok? Like, what is love? I would argue, and I want you to know this is the main idea of tonight, is that no matter what, God's love for you never changes. No matter how good or how bad your life has been, God's love for you never changes. No matter how old you are, from birth till death, God's love for you never changes. No matter what you've done, where you've been, or who you've tried to be, God's love for you never changes. What kind of love is that? A love that stays the same, that is constant, that is faithful, that is loyal. I'm trying to think of an example of a deep love that's much more than romance or an Instagram post. Like, what would that love look like? And I think of the driving passion behind a hero. Like, think of your favorite hero in the Marvel universe or in the comic books or whatever. But I also think of real world heroes. I think of firefighters, men and women who run into burning buildings to save people. There has to be some sort of love within them, a care for humanity, a desire to save and help a person, that they would put their own life on the line to go do that. Think back to kindergarten or preschool or elementary school or whatever, when the firefighters would come to school that day, get you out of class, but also they would fill the gymnasium with like fake smoke or something, or down a hallway or whatever. They would teach you things. They would say, if you put the back of your hand to the doorknob and it's hot, don't go that way, there's a fire. You know, they would teach you about all these different things. And then they would put their suit on. And that was some freaky looking stuff back when you were a kid. And they would be like, here's the deal. We're going to show you what we look like and what we sound like when we come into your house to help you, because it's probably going to scare you. And I mean, could you imagine being a kid? You're afraid of monsters under your bed, let alone your house burning down, the fire all over you. And all of a sudden blowing through your door is someone looking like Darth Vader mixed with something out of Stranger Things going, God wish me if you want to live. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would just be nuts. And so during that day, they would put on the suit and they would say, in the middle of your fire, in the middle of the craziness, I'm going to come in and I'm going to help you, and it's going to be scary, and I'm going to look like a monster, but you have to trust me. And if you take my hand, if you let me help you, I will get you to safety. And they would teach us that. Crazy kind of love that motivates a firefighter to do something like that. And there's a story, and it's an interesting way to frame love, but this is good stuff. There's a story in the Gospels. Now, the Gospels are a portion of the Bible that was basically the history of Jesus' life. It was the autobiography or biography. What is the one that you don't write yourself? It's biography. Autobiography, you write by yourself. This isn't an autobiography. This is a biography. People would write about what Jesus did in his life. And that's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So this story comes out of Matthew chapter 14. Jesus had just done a miracle in what scholars think was a crowd of 10,000 people, okay? The thing that makes Jesus so different is he would do these incredible things. Like, a lot of people have claimed to be God, and a lot of people have been good people. But the thing that set Jesus apart is he would say, I am the Father, or one. Basically saying, like, God and I, we're together. I am God. Like, that relationship is solid, and I am God in the flesh. Okay, a lot of people have said that too, but here's the thing. Jesus was backing it up with things that only God could do. And so people's arguments against him being God like started to fall apart, and the religious leaders of the day were like super freaked out by it. So Jesus is different. He's coming out on the scene, and it is wild. People in other towns hundreds of miles away are like tweeting about him, saying like, I don't know about this Jesus dude. I don't know if he's a magician or what, but people are like talking about him. Like, this really happened. Like, this really was a thing 2,000 years ago. And so Jesus just does this miracle in front of 10,000 people. And he tells his guys, the small group that he's been on tour with, kind of going from town to town, telling people the good news and helping people and healing the sick and stuff. And he says, hey, you go out on the boat, go across the water, and I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna take care of everybody. I'm gonna tell them to go home, all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna go pray up on a mountain. I'm gonna take some time, and then I'll find my way to you. And it's like, nobody asks a question. Maybe they learned to like not ask those questions, but they didn't ask them like, so are you gonna get a boat too? Because there's only one boat over there. Or like, you would just, go around it, can't go over it, gotta go around it kind of thing, Jesus? No. So anyways, Jesus goes up on the mountain. The guys go out on the boat. Big storm comes up. Now, these are fishermen, but this must have been a big storm. So I see it either two ways. One, the storm was really wild. Or two, the boat was really bad, right? Like, even if you've driven Highway 2 1,000 times, a Highway 2 in a car where the front wheels are falling off, terrifying, no matter how good of a driver you are. So the storm is either really bad or the boat's really bad. These guys are freaked out. They've been fighting this. At the time that Jesus finally comes to them, they've been fighting this storm and trying not to die and trying not to sink in this boat for 9 straight hours. No sleep. Could you imagine how just delirious and exhausted and emotional and frustrated and worked up you would be for 9 hours of trying not to die, okay? It's 4 a.m. And to top that, like the ghost stories that these guys would have told themselves in their culture when they were kids to try to scare each other at night or whatever, was that if you're on the water at night, the people who have died
On that water, their spirits, their ghosts will haunt the night and come and get you, and they'll float on the water.
This is a thing in their culture, okay? So here they are, freaked out, delirious. They don't know up from down. They've been fighting these waves all night. They're scared. They're freaked. Have you ever been in a storm like that? Maybe your life feels like that. Maybe your life feels like a storm, right? Maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you're worked up. Maybe you're anxious. Just see yourself in this a little bit. So here they are, boats sing, all this kind of stuff. Jesus comes walking on the water. And I'm not talking like surfboard, like riding the waves, right? Because I kind of imagine that sometimes, like, hey, but he's not. He was so calm and steady and consistent in the way that he was approaching them that they went, oh my gosh, it's a ghoul. Like, they were freaked out. They thought it was a ghoul floating to them in the boat. They were terrified. Jesus, I almost imagine him like giggling, like just it's kind of like when you hide behind a door and you scare your friend, anyways. He goes, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's me. And then he uses in the original translation, he uses a phrase that declares God's name in the Bible. He says, I am. Don't be afraid. I am. He's saying, don't be afraid. God is walking towards you. It's going to be all right. And Peter, he's one of the guys that travels with Jesus, and he's pretty close to Jesus, and he's also just kind of a redneck. Like, he's already a fisherman. And fishermen got to have kind of an attitude, kind of a grit about them, and kind of like a bull rider all at the same time, like those guys are crazy. Let's talk. Okay, so he sees Jesus, understands that it's Jesus, and then says, if it's really you, I want to walk on water too. Like, if you're going to ride that bull, I can ride it better, or whatever. And Jesus says, come on out, step towards me. Like, in the middle of this, the storm is still going. Like, he hasn't stopped the storm yet. The storm hasn't settled down. The waves are still crashing. The lightning is still flashing. It's so crazy. And Peter takes a few steps, and Jesus somehow miraculously is like keeping him afloat on the water. And then Peter gets freaked out by everything that's going on, and he starts to sink. And Jesus says, hey, grab my hand. And then he says, oh, you little faith. And some people read this and think Jesus like, you little faith, you shouldn't have. But really, if you look at the original language, he's more like giving him a nickname, like, oh, you goofball. Like, he's saying, you little faith. Here. And they get back in the boat, and the storm calms. And they were like, what just happened? What just happened? Surely this guy is God. I mean, they say that over and over again. Like, they have these multiple times with Jesus where they go, Jesus is God. It's crazy. Could you imagine what Peter was going through? And get this, the storm didn't stop before Jesus saved Peter. It was Jesus saved Peter, they got in the boat, and then the storm settled, right? Think about that in our lives. Sometimes we think that everything's got to be perfect before we can walk towards Jesus, or that we could have Jesus save us to be our hero, that maybe this crazy time, this chaos in our life has got to settle down, and then, that's when we'll move towards Jesus. That's not how it went in this story. Jesus walked straight into the chaos, grabbed Peter by the hand, took him to safety, and then calmed the storm. Crazy. What kind of love is that? And I know it's kind of interesting to flip the story and talk about love, but think about this. What kind of love walks straight into a sinking boat situation where your friends are freaked out and your love is consistent and calm and never changing and comes in and saves? That's wild. Now think of the storm that you might be going through. Think about what feels like 9 hours of no sleep, delusional, tired, angry, frustrated, anxious, worried. Whatever your situation is, your sinking boat. Imagine what that would feel like if God walked straight into your situation, straight into your chaos, straight into your storm, wasn't afraid, took you by the hand, made you feel safe, and then helps take care of that storm. What kind of love is that? Is that a love that's just a step above like? Is that just romantic? No, that's a deep love. That's a love like maybe some of us have ever known. Now go back to the firefighter. Imagine this situation. Play out this thought experiment with me, okay? Imagine the love that it takes to be a firefighter. But imagine this firefighter specifically. Let's call him Jim in this story. Has a family, a wife and a daughter. And he's working one night. He just got in for his shift. And they get the alarm. The beeper goes off. I don't know. I've never been a firefighter. They get alerted that the fire is there. And they look at the address that they have to drive to. And it's his. He knows the layout of the house. He knows where everyone sleeps. He knows what everybody in the house is afraid of. He knows what they're going through. But he knows exactly what he has to do. And so he gets to his house. He gets his wife out. And he knows his daughter is upstairs. And he runs up the stairs, and the fire has gotten upstairs and it's surrounding her room. Just a little girl, five years old. And he busts in the door, and she's scared. She's in the middle of the room, and he notices that the doorway's starting to give, and he shoves his back into it, and he says, "Get out, go." She goes, "But Daddy," he goes, "Get quiet, go, hurry, go." And the daughter runs out, crying the whole way. And in that moment, the father knew that he was going to have to take on the fire, that he was going to have to go down with the flames in order to hold this door open so that his daughter could go free. And he goes down with the house. But the daughter lives. What kind of love is that? Is that one step above like? Or is that something that we need in our lives and that we want in our lives? And when we talk about Jesus, we talk a lot about the cross. It was a torture weapon for the Romans. Jesus was an innocent man who was set up to be crucified. But God had a greater plan. And he knew all along that he was going to have to run into the burning house. That he was going to have to walk straight up to the boat that was sinking. And he was going to have to save everybody. Because whether we like it or not, all of our boats are sinking. All of our houses are on fire. Because of the sin in our lives and the sin in other people's lives that they've put on us. None of us are safe. All of us are sinking. And Jesus went to the cross to hold the doorway open so that we could escape the burning house. Grabbed our hands so that we could escape the sinking boat. To save us and to pull us to safety, even in the middle of the flames. even in the middle of the waves, even in the middle of the chaos. No matter your weakness, no matter how good your life has been or how bad your life has been, God's love for you never changes. It never changes. What would a love like that feel like to you? Where do you wish you had a love like that in your life? And how could it change your life if you accepted the fact that God loves you like that? That can make all the difference in the world.